Welcome back, everybody, to the last part of my top 50 games of all time. First of all, I want to say thank you, especially to those of you who've been tuning in to each part of this mini-series. And if you happen to be stumbling upon these videos later on in the future, you get to watch them all in their entirety. Don't hesitate to leave a comment. It's never too late to talk a little bit. If you want to share some of your own stories with some of the games that you've been seeing on here, please, I'd love to read those comments and I'd love to interact with anybody out there. Now, something that I've realized as I've been making these videos is I've not stuck to a consistent format. My presentation's always been a little bit different. And I'm talking specifically about how I've spoken about these games. I've realized that I've fallen into three ways of talking about these games. One, describing them, which, has been okay. It gets you through the video, I suppose, but it's not exactly the most personalized experience just describing the games. Two, I've been recommending some of the games at length, which should be unnecessary given that these are my top games of all time. Every game on this list clearly gets a recommendation and endorsement from me, right? And third, I've obviously been telling a lot of stories, especially in these later parts, and sometimes I've been a little bit long-winded with my storytelling, but I figured for this last part of the video and these last 5 games, I really want to focus on what it is that makes these games so good, in my opinion. And yeah, there's going to be a little bit more storytelling, but hopefully it won't just run everybody out of the video. Now, third thing I want to say, and this is really important, please keep on watching after the last video, or the last video game is presented. So yes, after game number 1, the video will keep on going, and I'm going to have a fun presentation on some stats and some information, some little things that I've looked at and I've analyzed from my 50 games here. I hope you'll enjoy that. Game number 5 on this long list of amazing games is The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. And this game, for so many people, it's their favorite game of all time. I completely understand it. In my situation, though, it hasn't beaten out some games that are a little more important because of nostalgia, but boy, it is one of the best games that I've ever played, hands down. It's got a really inviting and fun to explore open world, probably the best one that I've ever roamed around in. And you might argue that, well, it's not the most detailed, it's not the most lush environments, but it's a lot of fun. And what I find fun are the environmental puzzles. In Breath of the Wild, those are presented in the form of the Korok seed hunts. You can find a log and you can stand on it, and maybe it'll prompt some balloons to start popping up behind the trees that are in front of you. And you got to take out your bow or find some other creative methods. You got to shoot those balloons. I love that kind of interactivity. Obviously, there's all the spells and the abilities that Link has in this game. Stasis has been abused so much, and there's tons of fun videos you can watch on YouTube that really make good use of stasis and the tricks that you can do. I'm not a very big trickster when I play this game. I'm not too keen on learning different glitches and different ways to break the game as far as movement is concerned. That said, it's still a phenomenal game if you want to play more of a vanilla experience, more of a casual experience. I just like my casual experience a little bit. Try hard, I'll say. And I do want to make a note of this. One of the reasons that I find this game so fun is its laid-back atmosphere, its laid-back approach to being able to play the game. Unlike a game like Elden Ring, where you have to fear danger around virtually every corner, in Breath of the Wild, either because you are so strong or you are so capable as Link, or because there may not be an enemy around the corner, there might actually be something serene and something peaceful that you can go explore. The game experience is much more relaxed, and I enjoy that. I don't want to play a video game to always be high-strung all the time. That's why you see games like Dota are ranked a little bit beyond Breath of the Wild, because I can't always be in that mood to play a game. Sometimes, and especially as is the case with Breath of the Wild, I just want to unwind, relax, and take the world at my own slow pace. Game number 4, Gladius. A game that I'm sure so many of you have never even heard about. One of the most underrated games of all time, easily. You've got different people on YouTube and they always seem to have this niche, hidden gem type of game as their favorite or one of their favorites. And that is what this game is for me, even if it's at number 4, just at number 4. When I was a kid, it was awe-inspiring, it still is to some degree. It was a grand adventure, and it was majestic. And I mean that in a somewhat literal sense as well, because you do get to play some royalty. The game really captivated me because of how it seamlessly blended together mythology and gladiators. This Roman-inspired, Greek-inspired, Norse-inspired blend of things and storytelling and environments and even the creatures that appear It's all there, it's all phenomenal. I want to break it down just a little bit for you. Like I said, gladiator combat, and you can compose your party from all kinds of different characters. There's some really fun ones to discover, some hidden characters as well, and that's where the game really leans on its fantasy elements, its mythology. I don't want to spoil too much. I can keep it to some of the common creatures you'll encounter. The satyrs, for example, those are so interesting. They've got jugs of wine, you can drink your wine, you can breathe fire with the satyrs. There's undead creatures. There's even just creatures, animals, wolves, bears, scorpions, things like that. The game is wild at times. I loved exploring the different lands. I found it fascinating. You can take your pick of starting in the woods with this barbarian girl, and that's going to be your start of the game and those main characters who you might get attached to. Or you can choose the slightly harder mode, and you'll be in this Roman-inspired place playing as Valens and his best buddy Ludo. I think the story's pretty good. It does enough to make the characters seem interesting. The characters themselves have good personality. I was actually really surprised when I replayed the game that there was voice acting. I couldn't remember that. So even for a game that seems so old, I'm calling GameCube games so old, at least I played it on GameCube, I think that it's just got so much work put into it. It has aged fairly well, even if at times the combat is a little bit slow. But it's what you can do with the combat. The more you play the game, the more you level up. You get a lot of different attacks that you can unlock. Of course, like I said earlier, you've got all kinds of characters, and so you could decide, well, do I want to pack my party with support characters, healing characters, maybe I want some big tanky guys like these centurions, or do I want to be light, nimble, and use a lot of bandits or different characters like that. When you get to later lands and you see the kind of characters that appear there, for example, in one of the desert areas, you get the dervish, and they can be holding 2 blades. They'll use different dance-inspired attacks. Oh man, so much about the game. When I was a kid, I was seeing this kind of stuff for the first time. It blew my mind, and I still have such fondness and such a big appreciation for it. Such a fun game for me to replay, and I hope a lot of you will get the chance to play it for your first times. Game number 3, Tales of Symphonia. Easily, hands down, my favorite traditional JRPG. And prior to Symphonia, I really had only played Final Fantasy, games like that. Since Symphonia, I've played a lot of other games in the genre, but still this one reigns supreme for me. The characters, the story, and you've heard me criticize storytelling in video games before, but I honestly think that Symphonia has one of the better stories, and the way that you get involved with the characters, you feel for them. You like playing as the main character, at least I did, and you like his companions. You like his buddy, you like the different interests that are available to you there, and the gameplay as well. Oh. I have to focus on one specific thing with the combat, and that is that in Symphonia, you can assign other party members' abilities to your shortcuts. Now, maybe I'm delusional, maybe I just can't remember anything, but I don't think that this is a feature available in recent Tales games. I tried playing Abyss, Zestiria, Berseria, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I wasn't able to take my allies' abilities and assign them to my own character's controls. Now what that means for Symphonia is you can build up combos so much more easily. You can be starting something with Lloyd, usually the main character who you're going to play as, but you can choose other characters to control. And then you can invoke something with Genis, some magic. And so after you do a quick little combo with Lloyd, Genis's fireballs might hit the enemy, and then you can quickly reset your combo with Lloyd, but it counts as one continuous chain. That kind of combat, that kind of experimentation, trying to get really big combos, and I think once upon a time I did get over 100 hits. I was really proud of that when it happened. Now the combos obviously mean you're going to be doing more damage, but I think there's some other perks beside that. One thing that was just plain fun for me and a challenge that I had for myself is I had to get over 100 hit combo, and when I finally did, oh, I was so happy. This game really evokes the feeling of adventure and camaraderie and all kinds of things that, again, are typical in JRPGs, but I hadn't really experienced until I played this game, at least not in such great capacity. There's so much to do, so much to unlock, so much to discover. Some of my favorite things specifically were the cooking. I love cooking in all video games. That's actually going to be appearing again later on. I love the different weapon fusions and the shops and all that kind of stuff. I just ate it all up. Loved it. And of course, to wrap up, like so many other games on this list, I've got so many great memories of playing this game cooperatively with one of my best friends growing up. Not only did we get to play together, where one of us might be a swordsman and the other might be a mage, but we also compared our files as we were playing the game single player independently. I would go to a certain town, I would check in with him, see how far he'd gotten. It was so much fun playing the game concurrently with him, and that's just one of the many reasons why this game has to be number 3 for me. Game number 2, The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. And I love that this game gets to be here. I love that it gets to be my top 2. I wish it could be my top 1. Let me explain why it's here though. It's not because of inferior gameplay to number 1 or anything like that. I had the opportunity to replay Majora's Mask more recently, and I loved it, as I always do when I replay that game. But when I wanted to replay game number 1 on this list, my N64 was not working. And I may have talked about that in another video, and if I have, some of you might know what my favorite game of all time is now. But again, for all intents and purposes, it's Majora's Mask, or it's also Majora's Mask. Now, I love virtually everything about this game. The characters, the music, the gameplay, all of it is outstanding. The characters specifically, I adored some of them. As you play the game and you get more masks, some of those masks are going to allow you to transform, and when you transform, you can embody different warrior spirits. One of those is Mikau. I loved him. I'm not going to spoil what race he is or what he is, anything like that, but I loved Mikau. Another one is Fierce Deity, and sounds pretty generic and pretty vague, but the Fierce Deity character, its design, oh, I loved it. So many things about Majora's Mask, especially pertaining to the characters, I just love. The music, like I already mentioned, is so good. I mean, I could listen to the OST, and sure, there's some smaller tracks that are really just little melodies, simple melodies. You hear them for about 15 seconds and it moves on to the next track. But some of the longer versions, like the Deku Palace, love that. Oath to Order is another really good one. You can look these up on YouTube and listen for yourself. And of course, Zelda gameplay is always just so much fun for me. Zelda games are among my favorites ever. In this instance, I have to pick Majora's Mask to represent the whole series. Well, mine is Breath of the Wild, because Breath of the Wild really did so much drastically different. Majora's Mask, for me, is my favorite of the traditional Zeldas, hands down. Some of you who have tuned into some of my older videos may have heard this story before, but I gotta retell it. And one of the reasons why this game sits so highly for me is because it has to do with my favorite time of the year, my favorite holiday, Christmas. We had a tradition growing up where we got to open one present on Christmas Eve. And typically, when we knew that there was a video game there, we would ask my parents which one it was, and we could open that, we could play the video game. So one year it was Majora's Mask, and I had so much fun playing that game. It must have only been 1 hour, maybe even less. I played as much as I could before I got to bed, and I was just doing the early tutorial style stuff in Clocktown. I went to bed, I came down the next morning, and my brother had already made so much progress in the game. He had his turn after me, he started a new file, but he got so far in the game, I couldn't believe it. But it's a game that my brother and I really love. He actually wishes that this could be my number 1 game. I told him it can't be my number 1 at this moment in time, but if I remake this list, or if I just talk about my favorite games, again, I'm repeating myself, Majora's Mask, though, is easily a number 1, one of the best games and one of my favorite games of all time. Game number 1, Paper Mario. There it is. My favorite game, at least at this moment in time, in the world. Paper Mario is a game, like Majora's Mask, with so many great experiences, but a lot of them are actually shared with that same friend who I've mentioned over and over and over, Tales of Symphonia, Halo 3, the other games that we've played together. It was actually at his house that we got to play Paper Mario, and I gotta tell a really funny story, because this game had just one thing in my experience with this game gone a little bit differently, I would have hated it. When the game came out, when I saw the case and when I saw him holding it, and for the first opening moments of the game, I despised it. I did not like what they did to the Mario series. Up until that point, sure, I was familiar with Super Mario World, but Super Mario Bros. 3, that was my favorite game of all time, and I was used to platforming. I was used to a very specific look and feel of the game. And then he's putting Paper Mario on, and we're, feeling the game out for the first time ever, seeing what's good about it. There's all this dialogue that I'm not used to. I didn't like it, but we sat down, we played through the whole tutorial together, and by the time I got to the end of it, the colors, the music, the interactions, the writing, the combat, a switch had flipped inside me, and I was just completely enamored. I had to get my hands on the game. I got my hands on the game, and I just devoured it. I've got so many other good experiences with this game. With my brother, there's the cooking moments in the game, there's this character Tasty, and Paper Mario and so many Mario games, they're full of little jokes and puns like that. Tasty, get it? She's the cook in this game, and so you go to her with various ingredients, and she can combine them. And then what you get back, the finished dish, always looked so good to me. So my brother and I would do that together, but if I was playing the game on my own, usually I'd be homesick from school. I was getting sick a lot as a kid. I would have a little blanket for it. The TV's up somewhere where I can see it. My dog, the first family dog we owned, she would be running around a little bit. It was just such a cozy environment. Again, I hate using that word nowadays, but it really was. It was a cozy, comforting environment. I could not be more at peace. I could not be more literally at home with the game, and just everything about it. Such a lovable cast, such a charming game, full of that classic Mario fan service, which you've heard me talk about before with games like Mario Golf Toadstool Tour. I wanted to see more of it from that game, well, Paper Mario delivers it in spades. It's got fun combat, it's got fun exploration, it's got the badge system, it's got different ways to level up your character, it's got the different companions and the secrets to explore. This game really is such a complete experience, whether you like Mario or RPGs or adventure games. It's all of those things and more. It really is a perfect adventure. So that concludes the countdown. That is it for the top 50 games. I hope you've all enjoyed. If for whatever reason you haven't seen every part and you don't want any games spoiled for you, then please, I highly recommend you go watch those other parts now, because what I'm about to talk about is obviously going to spoil the other games. I've got some stats and some info coming up for you. I will just comment before I get into that I may not have spent as long talking about these recent 5 games, the ones in this video. That said, I know there will be opportunities in the future where I will be gushing about them. I mean, come on. Breath of the Wild, Majora's Mask, Tales of Symphonia, Paper Mario, and now you all know about Gladius. I love these games too much to not bring them up again. So I was okay spending a little less time on them today. So, the stats and information section. I thought this was a great idea. I'm going to toot my own horn there because it would be fun, first of all, but also very informative. A little redundant, I know, that's what information is. But it's something that I would also like to see other people do. If you or you know somebody and they're doing a long list, 25 games, 30 games, heaven forbid 50 with all the time it takes and the amount of hours the audience has to spend watching, again, thank you, I appreciate it. Why not just round up some of the games, tally the genres, things like that, break it down a little bit, and deliver a little bit extra. Make the experience a little more worthwhile. That's what I think by doing this. So I'm about to dive in over here. I don't have all of my graphs and whatnot ready yet. I've been struggling with that, and that's one of the reasons why this has taken so long to get out. But hopefully by the time I edit this video, I'm going to make it look nice, and I'll be throwing them here, there, wherever. Anywho, let's get into it because I do have the stats in front of me. We are going to start with the genres. The breakdown is as such: 18 total genres, and it's worth pointing out that I have really drastically simplified the genres. For example, Dota. I hate the term MOBA. I don't like it. I think it's just a marketing thing that was started by Riot for League of Legends. To me, Dota and those games, sure, you can say MOBA is a subgenre, but it's a subgenre of RTS, and I will die on that hill. Dota is an RTS. There's only one shooter in this list, and that specifically is Star Fox. Star Fox is a rail shooter, and if I had games like shoot 'em ups and whatnot, then I would also just simplify them and lump them all into this shooter category. So this is very interesting to me. The games that I like the most are puzzle games and RPGs. Those are at 6 apiece, 12% of my list, 6 and 6. An RPG here, yes, I believe it actually includes The Witcher 3, does not include, oh, it does include Dark Souls, right. So this is where there's a lot of subjectivity. To me, even though Dark Souls is technically a JRPG, the way it feels and the way that the game was made, I think it's an RPG. So you guys can get mad at me if you want. You could say I've done this or that wrong. Doesn't matter. Like I said, this is primarily for fun, and I enjoyed at least putting these stats together. This is how I think of the games that I've played. 6 and 6, puzzle and RPG. 5 RTSs. That's your StarCraft 2, that's Dota, like I said. 4 adventure games. And what is adventure? Traditionally and typically, adventure games are point-and-click adventures in games of that origin. However, I think Zelda, more broadly, is an adventure game. So my 2 Zelda games, they're adventures. 4 FPS, first-person shooters. 4 JRPGs, Tales of Symphonia, Paper Mario counts there, the Final Fantasy that I mentioned. 4 simulation games, and that includes Slime Rancher. 4 strategy games, and so now we've got Gladius and Final Fantasy Tactics. 3 platforming games, 2 action games, 2 deck building games, Slay the Spire and Yu-Gi-Oh! 1 fighting game, Smash, it is a fighting game, 1 horror, 1 racing, 1 sandbox, Minecraft, 1 shooter, and 1 sport game, Mario Golf. So those are the 18 genres that appeared for the 50 games. I'm going to throw up a pie chart. Maybe I'll highlight the titles of the video games so you can see them glowing on screen or something like that. Let's move into the next one. I thought this would be fun. Let's do a 2D and 3D breakdown. Because I thought, if there's a big representation of 2D games, maybe I'm more of a retro gamer than I thought. I don't think I am. This says that no, not really. There are 34 3D games, and that includes games like StarCraft 2. I thought about this. I really tried, maybe I got a little too out of the box with my thinking here. But StarCraft 2, for the most part, plays in a 2D plane. Yes, there are warp prisms, and there are things that you can use, and there's higher ground. So, yeah, it's a 3D game, and it's stuck as a 3D game. I think that this is more objective, this categorization. I think I got this right. So 34 3D games and 16 2D games, which is still a lot. Kirby 64, for example, actually, this is a good one. Kirby 64 looks like a 3D game, but it plays 2D. So Kirby 64 on my list is a 2D game. There you go. Sticking with something that has a lot of subjectivity, single player or multiplayer. But I decided I would get away from if the game is actually single player or multiplayer or whatever. And I decided to say I enjoyed the game single player, or I enjoyed the game multiplayer, or I enjoyed it both ways. So for example, Tales of Symphonia, I enjoyed it both ways. I was just talking to you guys about how I played Tales of Symphonia co-op with my buddy. So in many regards, it was a multiplayer game for me, but I played 99% of it single player. Minecraft is both. Dota 2 is purely multiplayer. So let's get into it. We have 32 single player games, 2 multiplayer games, and 16 that I played and experienced both ways. And some of those multiplayer, or some of those that are both, are co-op. Here's one that most people will be interested in. What platforms appear on my list? So Paper Mario is a Nintendo 64 game. Tales of Symphonia, GameCube. Let's see what we have. And this, again, is what hardware did I play the game on. It gets a little bit dicey or iffy when I get to PC. 17 games were played on Steam. Steam is not a piece of hardware, I know, but I played the games on Steam, and even if they originally released somewhere else, I just lumped them in on Steam. That's how I played the game, that's how I experienced it. I played 7 games on the Nintendo 64, 7 games on GameCube, so that's nice, 5 games on the Switch, 3 on GBA, 3 on the DS, 2 on the 360, Call of Duty and Halo, 2 Windows PC. And that is the Incredible Machine, because it wasn't Steam yet. It was just a really ancient 90s PC. And I think the other game is Warcraft 2, of course. And if these were DOS games, I would have said that they were DOS, but I don't know if they're Windows 98 or whatever, so there they are, Windows PC. 1 NES game, 1 3DS game, 1 BattleNet game. What the heck am I doing there? Well, I figured since I had Steam, I would also include BattleNet, and that's StarCraft 2. And then 1 standalone game, Minecraft. Yes. Now, Minecraft recently has been acquired by Microsoft. I'm going to get into that with the next category. Category 2 is making this a little more simple. What platforms or what company do these platforms fall under? The big umbrella. So how many of them are Nintendo? How many of them are Microsoft? Or how many are just generic PC? And I've got 27 games on here that I played on Nintendo hardware, 21 games that I played on the computer, on my PC, and then separately 2 Microsoft games, not to be confused with PC, so that does not include Minecraft. Again, the 2 Microsoft games there are just Halo 3 and Call of Duty 4. Okay, another really fun one. What year did the game release? And I did this specifically so I could find out what games do I play in which decades. Am I a 90s gamer? Am I a 2000s gamer? 2010s, etc. And what we have, this actually kind of surprised me. I thought I would have older games in here, but I'll get into some points later. 1 game from the 1980s, so that is just Super Mario Bros. 3. 4 games from the 1990s, and you can figure those out. 21 games, amazingly, from the 2000s. There's a lot of good games there. That includes the GameCube, that includes the Nintendo 64. But even more surprising than that, 22 games from the 2010s. I didn't know that I liked modern releases that much, but I'm gonna say why the 2010s are represented more than the 2000s in a moment. 2 games from the 2020s. And those games include, what do we have there? Animal Crossing New Horizons, and of course Elden Ring. Yeah, those are the only 2 games that I've really enjoyed, or that I've actually gotten around to playing, because I am a few years behind on my backlog. Now, why did the 2010s win out by 1 game? Because when I was refining my list, for example in the case of Mario Kart, I decided that no, if I had to pick 1 game, it would be Mario Kart 8 over Mario Kart DS. But had I stuck with Mario Kart DS, the 2000s would be ahead. And there's another example of that again with Animal Crossing. Had I picked New Leaf, which I was really considering, then it would have given 2 points to the 2000s. So that's that. I thought that was really interesting and fun. How many times have I played through a game and beaten it? And you're going to be a little surprised here that there are some incomplete games on my list. 6 of them, in fact. And I have to pull this up to find out which ones they are. 1 incomplete game, Age of Empires 2. Now, if you know Age of Empires 2, you know that there are so many single-player missions. Too many of them, in fact. I've always loved multiplayer more. So still to this day, even though I've been playing Age of Empires for decades, I haven't played every single-player mission. Not even close. The other incomplete game, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, I'm so close to finishing it. I consider completing the game as doing the story mode, doing the adventure mode. And I think I'm getting closer to beating it, but I've been playing it on hard, and that's made it take a little bit longer. StarCraft 2, again, I took so long getting to Legacy of the Void that by the time I made this video, I was just starting Legacy of the Void. But when Wings of Liberty and when Heart of the Swarm came out, I played those right away, I beat those right away, and I loved them. It's just a timing thing with Legacy of the Void for me. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. This is a game that I haven't enjoyed playing single player too much. Not that it's not fun, but because there's been other games to play. Mario Kart 8 comes out whenever I got friends over or want to play multiplayer. So in my opinion, I haven't beaten the game because I haven't beaten every cup. I haven't played every map in the game yet. Once I beat the game though and I win some trophy in every cup, then I'll say, yeah, okay, I've beaten the game. Animal Crossing New Horizons. I consider beating the game paying off all of your debts to Tom Nook. I don't even think I'm close to doing that yet, so incomplete. And then The Incredible Machine, that old game from the 90s. I don't think I played every single mission when I was a kid. It would have been way too hard, so I just confidently chalked that up to incomplete. The 3 games that don't count on here are Dota 2, Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Siege, and Tetris DS. And Tetris DS, even though it has so many different modes, I don't think it has one mode where you can play that and say, oh yeah, I beat Tetris. A lot of it is just playing infinitely, or as long as you can, as close to infinitely as possible. It was really nice for me to see that I've played nearly half the games on here more than once. So what does that tell me? The games I like are not just one-hit wonders. Let's see, a game that I see I've played 3 times, Majora's Mask. Minecraft, too many times to count. If you count beating the dragon, I've at least beaten the dragon 3 times with different people and myself. Another game that's a little bit, how many times have I played it? Dark Souls. I think I got to New Game 4. Now, a couple of those playthroughs would have been trying to run from beginning to end as quickly as I could and just picking up a few drops where I had to. But still, technically, I've beaten the game more than 3 times, or at least 3 times. Next, and I've talked about achievements before, so you guys know how important achievements are to me. I get addicted to them in really good games. How many games have I beaten 100%? Pretty crazy? 29 games I've completed, at least in my opinion. Some of them, you might have different categories and criteria for completing them 100%. But for example, I think I was pretty fair in judging this. Pokemon Emerald, I've unlocked everything that I could. I picked up all the TMs, I did all that stuff, but I never completed the Pokédex. So, Pokemon Emerald, no, I did not beat the game 100%. You can see there's a couple categories on here. 3 games that are not applicable, so that means Dota 2, Siege, those games do not have achievements, you just keep on playing them indefinitely. And there are 3 games that are marked not recently. What does that mean? Well, in the case of Dishonored, I beat the game as best I could when it first came out. And when it first came out on Steam, there were no achievements. Or, it wasn't that I played the game on Steam, but I may have played it on another software. But I distinctly remembered beating Dishonored, and yet when I looked at my Steam tab, there were no achievements there, which I know is just not true. There are 2 games that I beat when they were only in their vanilla versions, and those are Skyrim and New Vegas. I've gotten 100% of the achievements in their base games. I have not purchased the DLC. I have no interest, so they're a little bit up in the air. Did I beat them 100%? Not technically, but I did the best that I could. I did everything that was available to me. Sticking with fun categories, which games have I played have creative modes, or which games have I played creatively? This counts Age of Empires 2. It has a map editor, and I've spent so many hours in the map editor creating things. Minecraft, obviously, is purely a creative game. And so there are 7 games on this list, either through map editors, Forge, and Halo 3, and different modes like that, where I've played creative games. 7 are creative, 43 are not. And then, to wrap up, the last category that I have here for you is how many games are 10 out of 10? How many games are basically perfect, or at least masterpieces? And there are 10 games that are 10 out of 10, and for me it's really interesting seeing that my top 6 games, my top 6 games on my list, they're all 10 out of 10 to me. So that includes up to The Witcher 3, and then we do not have Minecraft as 10 out of 10. We do have Pokemon Emerald, we do have Dark Souls. Again, I skip a game, I skip Dota 2, Halo 3, 10 out of 10 game. I skip a few more, and here's the big surprise, Metroid Prime is the last masterpiece on my list. Metroid Prime only ranked at 15th, and how the heck does that work where it's a 10 out of 10 game but it's only 15th? I think it goes back to what do I look for when I play a game? How relaxed can I be when I play it? And Metroid Prime, either because the age I was or because I was so fixated on scanning everything for 100%, I just wasn't able to play it in the most relaxed atmosphere, the most laid-back mood. So, Metroid Prime, phenomenal game, not one of my top 10, but it is 10 out of 10. So that is it. Almost, anyways. If you've enjoyed everything that I've done up until this point, great. If you want a little bit more, you want to know why some games did not make the list, for example, where's Metal Gear? Have I played the games and just not liked them as much? Or have I not even played Metal Gear? I'm going to be getting into that kind of stuff in an extras video. For most of you, you're going to be done here, and again, thank you all for watching so much. For those of you who want to learn a little bit more about me, it's going to be a purely personal video, again, an extras video where I talk about what games I haven't played, and one thing I think is going to be interesting, what games have I not played that I think would make it on my top 50. So games that I've really looked forward to playing. I'm going to be discussing all of that later. To close this video out, I'm going to have a little bit of an end screen where you can see my top 50 games as a list, and you can see some of these breakdowns there, so you can just pause the page, pause the video if you want to look at that page in more detail. You can hear that my voice is running out. There's no Leo here right now. He's just lying down over there. He's sleeping. I did not want to disturb him, but it's a bye from Leo. Bye from me. Thank you all for watching. Flock to the comments. Go nuts in there. Tell me whatever you want to say. Share your own stories. And that's it. One more big thank you to everybody for watching. We'll see if I do something again like this in the future. Bye for now.